Written over 2,000 years ago, Titus Lucretius' Carus epic poem expresses completely modern notions. For example, empiricism, a theory of atoms, a theory of evolution, the notion of prehistory, and Epicureanism's morality and psychology. Helping to ignite the Renaissance, it is considered most important. On this video, you may learn details about a section of this epic poem. Lucretius Book 4, Fool's Dream of Love. The philosopher now attempts explaining dreams, imagination, and even thoughts. This is something that currently remains mysterious. Perhaps it will never be known how the brain functions, how it produces consciousness, thoughts, and imaginations, yet Lucretius believes he knows. So, firstly, there are tiny atoms in the air at all times. Some of these enter the mind in the form of detection or observation. Most of them leave, but some remain.
And when the sleep has overset our frame, the mind's intelligence is now awake. The self-same atoms as when we are awake assail our minds to such degree indeed that we do seem to see for sure, whom the mind feigns to see alive, long since, had gained death and dissolution.
The poet spends some time proving that dreams very much affect the mind. At some point, he seems to hint at the question of free will, as he questions what, or who, controls the processes of the mind. As such, I guess he does not know. He calls it a marvel and stresses the importance of avoiding self-deception. Yes, he is clear that the mind gives itself much of its own imagination. It mixes remaining sense particles, frames them by emotional forces, creating new things that one must be wary not to believe. I feel I must make my personal opinion unequivocal. There is no free will. As long ago I asked, can you think about what you are going to think about before you think about it? Surely, free will is neither logical nor apparent to sensation or consciousness, and contrary to empirical evidence. Either way, returning to the text, there is the single most profound piece of natural philosophy. The poet hints at his upcoming theory of evolution.
Shun the error of presuming that our cameras were created for the purpose of giving sight. All such interpretation is apt for with inverse reasoning, since naught is born in body with intended use, but perhaps we may find some use for it.
To be clear, this means to say that the parts of an organism were first created, then use was found for them.
All the members, I insist, were there, and then a use for them was invented.
Several analogies are used to explain the point, although it now seems too common for anyone understanding the theory of evolution. However, the author might have found it necessary to hint and allude, because in the following book he will provide a complete natural history of the aforementioned process. Lucretius also speaks of why life needs to feed as he describes the many ways in which life uses and discards the atoms that it consumes. Then arises the concern over how, in what manner, may the mind control, move, the body, meaning the mechanics of bodily motion. The poet imagines a system of force that uses something akin to wind. He makes the analogy that wind, seemingly so light and diluted, is able to move heavy ships. Also, it is clear that the mind controls the body as, he says,
no one starts to do a thing before the intellect previsions what it wills.
Likewise enters the question of what causes sleep. To be brief, let me say that Lucretius holds that the soul, which he normally has spread all through the body, concentrates due to a lack of energy. It concentrates because it is tired, LOL. As such, the only thing that remains functioning is thought. Since it is unable to control much of the body, it goes to sleep. But it does control some of the body as dreams are seen producing quick movements. These dreams, it is reiterated, are caused by whatever the mind has recently gathered. Although he complains of how the mind ceases to work, to labor on anything productive during sleep, the main proof of the mind's ability to retain some control over the body while asleep, while in dreams, are things such as urination and sexual excretions. Yes, the poet speaks of both, and let me quote of the latter.
Again, those males into the surging channels of whose years now first has passed the seed, are in their sleep confronted from without by idol images of some fair form, displaying a glorious face and lovely bloom. With all the matter acted duly out, they pour the billows of a potent stream and stain their garment.
This is by no means the end of such a topic. In fact, the poet makes a whole section of the passions brought upon by Venus and Cupid's arrows. However, I cannot relate the details he mentions on this medium. Most curiously, he soon says, speaking of sexual imaginations, that
it behooves to flee those images, and scare afar whatever feeds thy love, and turn elsewhere thy mind, spread the sperm, gathered within thee, onto sundry bodies, nor, with thy thoughts still busied with one love.
Yes, to him, masturbation may prevent irrational action. Lack of reasons such as falling in love. He is not against enjoying sexual pleasure, but warns against emotional obsession. Yes, the poet speaks of the madness of love, whereas food and drink may be satisfied, not so love. Apparently, LOL. Consider these lines.
From human face and lovely bloom, not penetrates our frame to be enjoyed, save flimsy idol images and vain, a sorry hope which often the winds disperse. Thus in love, Venus deludes with idol images the lovers, nor they cannot sate their lust by merely gazing on the bodies.
I must make clear that subsequently the poet describes the most passionate, erotic, maddening love-making. A love that surely can only exist if there is more than a mere superficial attraction. Love-making such as what is described is rare, LOL. It is said that such people, such lovers, lose themselves in the desire. I guess he is warning against sex addiction. What is certain is that he who is described as obsessed. Love, by either envy or wasted time, ruins life. The poet warns,
always be preventive in the way I've shown, and guard against enticements, for to shun a fall into the hunting snares of love is not so hard as to get out again when tangled in the very nets and burst the stoutly knotted cords of Aphrodite.
I guess some would pity one that has not felt such powerful emotions, as one that has not lived the fullness that a human may. Others, of course, would mock it as weakness. I should note that the whole is written as if for men or from a male perspective. There are examples of how men will often brand a nickname to women. This is all to say that there are many women and, in reality, all should be considered the same. Meaning, not to obsess about any specific woman. It is a very curious moral message. There is an extensive description of an obsessed male, one that prostrates himself for his love. To be clear, the woman is at times described as the cajoler. However, it is said, both males and females may suffer as both may enjoy the pleasure. As for procreation, for children, it is mentioned that both contribute seeds. So much so, in fact, that traits from grandfathers, as if hidden, often arise in the new generation. Jocularly, Lucretius corrects the popular misconception, self-delusion, that all males have functioning seeds. He mocks the wasting of gold for religious offering that allegedly improve the woman's womb. Instead, he says,
for sterile are these men by seed too thick, or else by far too watery and thin, because the thin is powerless to cleave fast to the proper places straightway. It trickles from them and is returned, retiring abortively.
It is said that proper diet is a factor in fertility. Most jocularly, the ideal position for impregnation is described.
Embrace in the manner of wild beast, after the custom of the 4-foot breeds, because so postured, with the breasts beneath, and the buttocks well upreared.
Also, it is best if the woman moves the least possible, as if she moves too much, allegedly, she will throw the seed off track. This is the reason, Lucretius says, prostitutes move so much. Not only does it secure them from pregnancy, of course not so in reality, but also makes the sex more pleasant for the man. Then he complains that his wife doesn't move like the courtesans he has enjoyed. Oh my Zeus! Lastly, in this book, there is mention of how sometimes love does not come about suddenly, as if by an arrow of Venus. Rather, it results from frequent and long acquaintances. He doesn't believe in love at first sight. There is only obsession at first sight. Yes, it is after much association that two people may rationally choose to live their life together. A healthy love, a love for the wise. As usual, in an attempt to motivate you to watch the final completion of this series, I gift you an aphorism. Although this one is not crafted from Lucretius, it is nonetheless fitting and one of my favorites.
Since most people are prone to envy, if lovers did not so much advertise their love, so many people would not fall in love.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.